The air felt like it could shatter. My heart pounded as I stood in the dim glow of our Seattle living room, clutching the edge of the couch, knowing everything was about to change. I was 25, and tonight, I'd tell my dad I was gay. His name was Marcus, a broad-shouldered black man in his late 40s, a mechanic who wore his pride like a badge. Pride in his work, his family, his straight-edge life. He sat across from me now, his calloused hands folded, eyes fixed on the Mariners game flickering on the TV. My uncle, Ray, 50, a gruff ex-cop with a buzz cut and a permanent scowl, sprawled in the recliner, nursing a beer. They were my world. These two men who raised me after Mom left when I was 6. But they were old school, their world built on rules I was about to break. Dad, I started, my voice barely above a whisper. I need to tell you something. He didn't look up. Yeah, Jaden? What's up? His tone was casual, distracted. But Ray's eyes flicked toward me, sharp and suspicious. I swallowed hard, my palms slick. This was it, the moment I'd rehearsed 1,000 times in my head. The moment I dreaded since I first realized I liked guys in high school. I'm gay, I said, the words tumbling out, raw and unsteady. The room went silent. The TV's drone the only sound. Marcus froze, his hand halfway to his mouth with a handful of popcorn. Ray's beer bottle hit the coffee table with a thud. What did you just say? Marcus's voice was low, dangerous, like the rumble of a storm. His dark eyes locked onto mine, and I felt like I was 10 again, caught sneaking cookies, only this was worse. This was me, my truth laid bare. I'm gay, I repeated louder, though my legs trembled. I've known for years. I'm tired of hiding it. Ray snorted, leaning forward, his elbows on his knees. You're joking, right? This some kind of phase? His words stung, but I expected them. Ray was the kind of guy who thought tough love meant yelling until you agreed with him. But Marcus, my dad, he was the one I needed to reach. He was the one who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd stayed up late helping me with math homework, who'd always said family was everything. Dad, please, I said, my voice cracking. This is who I am. I'm still me. Marcus stood, his 6 feet 3 inches frame looming over me. You're still you? He echoed, his voice rising. You think you can just drop this on me, Jaden? In my house? His words cut deeper than I'd braced for. I knew he'd be shocked, maybe angry, but the betrayal in his eyes, it was like I'd stabbed him. Marcus, calm down, Ray said, but his tone was cold, calculating. Kid's confused. Needs to be fixed. Fixed? I snapped, my fear giving way to anger. I'm not broken. You watch your tone, Marcus growled, stepping closer. You think you can just choose this? After everything I've done for you? It's not a choice, I shouted, my chest heaving. I didn't choose to feel this way, just like you didn't choose to love Mom. The mention of her was a mistake. Marcus's face darkened, and Ray stood now, too, his fists clenched. Don't you dare bring her into this, Marcus said, his voice shaking. You're my son. You're supposed to be better than this. The room felt smaller, the air thick with tension. I wanted to run, but my feet were glued to the floor. Better than what? I asked, quieter now, tears burning my eyes. Better than being honest? Better than being me? Ray stepped between us, his face inches from mine. You're not doing this to our family, Jaden. You hear me? You're not gonna parade around, embarrassing us. I'm not trying to embarrass anyone, I said, my voice breaking. I just want to be honest. I'm in love, Dad. His name's Eli. He's amazing. That was the wrong thing to say. Marcus's eyes widened, and Ray let out a harsh laugh. In love, Ray mocked. With some guy? You're out of your damn mind. Enough, Marcus roared, slamming his fist on the coffee table. The popcorn bowl tipped over, scattering kernels across the floor. You're not bringing some guy into this house. You're not doing this to me. Doing this to you? I whispered, tears spilling now. This is my life, Dad. He turned away, his shoulders rigid, and I saw the man who'd raised me shut down, wall himself off. Ray grabbed my arm, his grip bruising. You're gonna regret this, kid, he hissed. You don't get to tear this family apart. I yanked my arm free, my heart pounding so hard I thought it'd burst. I'm not tearing anything apart, I said, looking at Marcus, pleading. Dad, please, just talk to me. But he didn't. He walked out, the front door slamming behind him. Ray followed, muttering something about fixing this. I stood there, alone, the TV still blaring, my world crumbling. The next morning, I woke up to an empty house. Marcus's truck was gone, and Ray's beat-up sedan wasn't in the driveway. I texted Eli, my boyfriend, a 26-year-old Hispanic graphic designer with a smile that could light up a room. We'd met 6 months ago at a coffee shop in Capitol Hill, bonding over our love for old jazz records and late-night talks about life. He was my safe haven, the one person who made me feel like I could be myself. Meet me at the park, I texted him, needing his warmth, his reassurance. The park was our spot. A quiet place near Lake Union where we'd spent countless evenings talking, laughing, dreaming. I grabbed my jacket and headed out, the Seattle drizzle cool against my skin. Eli was already there, leaning against a tree, his dark hair damp from the rain. He was shorter than me, maybe 5 feet 9 inches, with warm brown eyes and a flannel shirt that always smelled faintly of cedar. Jaden, he said, pulling me into a hug. You okay? I shook my head, burying my face in his shoulder. It was bad, Eli. Really bad. I told him everything. The shouting, the betrayal in Dad's eyes, Ray's threats. Eli listened, his hand rubbing slow circles on my back. They'll come around, he said, though his voice wavered. They have to. I wanted to believe him, but the pit in my stomach told me otherwise. Marcus and Ray weren't the type to come around. They were stubborn, set in their ways, and I just challenged everything they believed in. We sat on a bench, the same one where we'd shared our first kiss 3 months ago. The park was quiet, the only sound the soft patter of rain on the leaves. What if they don't? I asked, my voice barely audible. What if they never accept me? Eli took my hand, his fingers warm against mine. Then you've got me, he said, his eyes steady. And we'll build our own family, one that loves you for you. His words were a lifeline, but they couldn't erase the fear gnawing at me. I'd always been close to Marcus, closer than most sons and fathers. He'd been my hero, the man who'd carried me on his shoulders at Mariners games, who'd taught me how to change a tire, who'd cried when I graduated high school. Losing him felt like losing a part of myself. That night, I went back home, hoping Marcus would be there, ready to talk. But the house was still empty. My phone buzzed with a text from Ray. Meet us at the shop, 9 p.m. We need to settle this. The shop was Marcus's auto repair garage, a gritty place in South Seattle filled with the smell of oil and metal. It was where he and Ray spent most of their time, fixing cars, joking, being the men they'd always been. The thought of meeting them there made my stomach twist, but I couldn't back down. Not now. I arrived at 8:55, the neon sign flickering above the garage. The bay doors were open, and I saw Marcus and Ray inside, standing by a workbench littered with tools. Marcus's face was unreadable, but Ray's was hard, his arms crossed. Jaden, Marcus said, his voice flat. Sit. I sat on a stool, my hands shaking. Dad, I just want to talk. No. Ray cut in, stepping forward. You listen. You're not doing this. You're not gonna live like that. Like what? I I shot back, my voice rising. Like who I am? Marcus slammed a wrench down, the clang echoing. You think this is easy for me? He said, his eyes blazing. You think I want to lose my son? You're not losing me, I shouted. I'm right here. But Ray had other plans. He grabbed a duffel bag from the workbench and tossed it at my feet. Pack your stuff, he said. You're leaving. I stared at the bag, my heart stopping. What? You heard me, Ray said, his voice cold. You're not staying under Marcus's roof. Not like this. I looked at Marcus, waiting for him to say something, anything, but he just stood there, his jaw tight, his eyes on the floor. Dad, I whispered. Please. He didn't look up. It's for the best, Jaden, he said, his voice barely audible. For now. The words hit like a punch. I stood, my vision blurring with tears, and grabbed the bag. You're kicking me out? I asked, my voice shaking. Because I'm gay? Marcus flinched, but he didn't answer. Ray stepped closer, his voice low. You made your choice. Now live with it. I wanted to scream, to fight, but I was too broken. I walked out, the rain soaking me as I stumbled to my car. I drove to Eli's apartment, my hands shaking on the wheel, the weight of their rejection crushing me. That night, as I lay in Eli's arms, I made a promise to myself. I'd never forget what they did, but I'd also never stop fighting for my truth. The next week was a blur of pain and defiance. Eli's tiny apartment in Capitol Hill became my refuge, its walls covered in his vibrant sketches, a stark contrast to the cold silence of my dad's house. I crashed on his couch, my duffel bag still unpacked, as if moving in fully would mean accepting that Marcus and Ray had truly cast me out. Eli was patient, his gentle humor and warm meals keeping me grounded, but the ache in my chest never left. I kept checking my phone, hoping for a text from Dad, an apology, anything. It never came. I found a part-time job at a bookstore near Pike Place Market, shelving novels and dodging tourists. The work was mindless, but it gave me space to think, or maybe overthink. Every night, I replayed that moment in the garage, Marcus's silence cutting deeper than Ray's words. How could the man who'd raised me, who'd cheered at my soccer games and taught me to stand up for myself, turn his back on me? And Ray, his cruelty wasn't a surprise, but it still burned. He'd always been the enforcer, the one who thought toughness could fix anything, even me. Eli tried to pull me out of my spiral. One evening, he dragged me to a jazz club in Belltown, a cramped spot with low lights and a saxophonist who played like he was pouring his soul into every note. We sat in a corner booth, Eli's hand resting lightly on mine. You're stronger than you know, Jaden, he said, his brown eyes searching mine. They don't get to define you. I wanted to believe him, but the weight of rejection was heavy. They were my family, I said, my voice low. I thought they'd at least try to understand. Eli squeezed my hand. Family isn't just blood. It's the people who choose you. His words were soft, but they carried a truth I wasn't ready to fully embrace. I leaned into him, letting the music drown out my thoughts for a while. But the past wouldn't stay buried. A week later, I got a call from my cousin, Lena, a 30-year-old black woman who worked as a nurse and lived in Tacoma. She was Ray's daughter, but we'd always been close, more like siblings than cousins. Jaden, what the hell happened? She asked, her voice sharp with worry. Dad's saying you're gone, that you chose to leave. I laughed bitterly, sitting on Eli's balcony, the Seattle skyline glittering in the distance. Chose? They kicked me out, Lena, because I'm gay. There was a long pause. Jesus, she whispered. I'm so sorry. Dad's been ranting about family values. But I didn't know it was this bad. And Uncle Marcus, he's not talking, Jaden. He's just shut down. Her words twisted the knife. Marcus wasn't fighting for me, wasn't even arguing. He'd just given up. Can you talk to him? I asked, hating how desperate I sounded. Maybe he'll listen to you. I'll try, she said, but I could hear the doubt in her voice. Just take care of yourself, okay? You're not alone. Lena's call gave me a flicker of hope, but it also stirred something else. Anger. I wasn't the one who should be begging for acceptance. I hadn't done anything wrong. That night, I told Eli I wanted to go back to the house, to confront Marcus and Ray again. I needed answers, closure, something. Eli frowned, his brow furrowing. You sure? They hurt you, Jaden. What if it's worse this time? I have to try, I said, my jaw tight. I can't just let them erase me. The next evening, I drove to the house, my heart pounding as I pulled into the driveway. Marcus's truck was there, but Ray's car was gone. I took a deep breath and knocked, the sound echoing in the quiet night. No answer. I used my key, stepping into the familiar smell of motor oil and coffee. The living room was dark, the TV off, but I heard movement in the kitchen. Dad, I called, my voice unsteady. Marcus appeared in the doorway, his face haggard, a beer in his hand. He looked older, the lines around his eyes deeper. Jaden, he said, his voice flat. What are you doing here? I live here, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. Or I did, until you and Ray decided I wasn't welcome. He flinched, setting the beer down. You think I wanted this? He said, his voice rising. You think I wanted to lose my son? Then why did you let it happen? I shouted, stepping closer. You stood there while Ray told me to leave. You didn't say a word. Because I don't know how to do this, he roared, his hands shaking. I don't know how to look at you and see this. It's not what I raised you to be. His words were a slap, but I didn't back down. You raised me to be honest, I said, my voice trembling. You raised me to stand up for myself. And that's what I'm doing. I'm gay, Dad. I'm in love with Eli. And I'm not ashamed of it. Marcus stared at me, his eyes glassy. For a moment, I thought he might say something, might bridge the gap between us. But then he turned away, his shoulders slumping. I need time, Jaden, he said, his voice barely audible. I just need time. I wanted to scream, to shake him, to make him see me. But I couldn't. I walked out, the door clicking shut behind me, the sound final in a way I couldn't explain. Back at Eli's, I broke down, the weight of it all too much. He held me, his arms steady, his voice a quiet anchor. You're enough, he whispered. You're more than enough. But the fight wasn't over. The next day, Lena called again, her voice urgent. Jaden, you need to come to Tacoma. Dad's planning something bad. He's been talking to some guys from his old precinct, saying he's gonna set you straight. I don't know what it means, but I'm scared. My blood ran cold. Ray had always been harsh, but this felt different, dangerous. I told Eli, and his face hardened. We're not letting him touch you, he said, his voice fierce. We'll figure this out together. That night, we drove to Tacoma, the rain pounding the windshield, my heart racing. Lena met us at a diner, her face pale. Dad's at some bar with his buddies, she said. He's been drinking, talking about teaching you a lesson. I tried to stop him, but he won't listen. I felt sick, the memory of Ray's grip on my arm flashing through my mind. What kind of lesson? I asked, my voice shaking. I don't know, Lena said, her eyes wide. But he's angry, Jaden. Really angry. Eli grabbed my hand under the table, his grip tight. We need to be smart, he said. We can't just confront him. Not like this. But I was done running. Ray had taken enough from me. My home, my family, my peace. I wasn't going to let him take my dignity, too. I'm going to that bar, I said, standing. I'm done letting him scare me. Eli tried to argue, but I was already moving, my anger carrying me out the door. The bar was a dive, all neon lights and cigarette smoke, packed with rough-looking guys. I spotted Ray in the corner, laughing with two men in leather jackets. His face flushed from drinking. When he saw me, his smile vanished. "Jaden," he said, standing, his voice slurring. "You got some nerve showing up here." "I'm not afraid of you," I said, my voice steady despite the fear clawing at me. "You don't get to control my life." Ray stepped closer, his buddies flanking him. "You're a disgrace," he spat, "and I'm gonna make sure you learn that." Before I could respond, Eli was beside me, his voice calm but firm. "Back off, Ray. This isn't your fight." Ray laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You his little boyfriend?" he sneered. "This is family business." "No," I said, stepping forward. "This is my life, and you don't get to tell me who I am." The bar went quiet, all eyes on us. Ray's face twisted, and for a moment, I thought he'd swing. But then Lena appeared, pushing through the crowd. "Dad, stop!" she shouted. "This is enough." Ray froze, his eyes flicking to her. For the first time, he looked uncertain. Lena grabbed his arm, pulling him back. "You're better than this," she said, her voice breaking. "He's family." Ray didn't say anything, just turned and stormed out, his buddies following. I stood there, shaking, Eli's hand on my shoulder, the only thing keeping me upright. Lena hugged me, tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I'll keep trying with him." I nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. As we left the bar, the rain had stopped, the sky clear. Eli pulled me close, his lips brushing my forehead. "You were incredible," he said. "I'm so proud of you." But the victory felt hollow. Ray was gone for now, but Marcus was still out there, still silent. I knew this wasn't over. Not yet. The weeks that followed were a tightrope walk between hope and despair. I moved fully into Eli's apartment, my duffel bag finally unpacked, my clothes mingling with his in the cramped closet. It felt like a step forward, but the shadow of Marcus's silence loomed over me. I kept working at the bookstore, the routine grounding me, but every quiet moment brought memories of Dad's face that night in the garage, hurt, angry, lost. Eli was my anchor. He'd cook breakfast tacos on weekends, blasting Miles Davis, trying to make me laugh. He was 26, but his easy smile and quiet strength made him seem older, wiser. We'd sit on his balcony, watching the ferries glide across Puget Sound, and he'd talk about his dreams, starting his own design studio, maybe moving somewhere quieter one day. I wanted that future with him, but the weight of my family's rejection made it hard to dream. Lena kept in touch, texting updates about Marcus and Ray. She'd been talking to Dad, trying to soften him, but he was stubborn, retreating into work at the garage. Ray, meanwhile, had gone quiet after the bar incident, but Lena warned me he was still angry, still talking about fixing me. The thought made my skin crawl, but I refused to let fear control me. One afternoon, while shelving books, I got a text from an unknown number. "Meet me at the shop, 6 p.m. Just you." My heart stopped. It was Marcus's number. He'd gotten a new phone, or maybe he'd blocked me before. I stared at the message, my hands shaking. Was this a chance to talk, or another ambush? I told Eli, and his face tightened. "You're not going alone," he said, his voice firm. "Not after what happened with Ray." "I have to," I said, my jaw tight. "If there's even a chance Dad wants to talk, I need to take it." Eli argued, but he knew me too well to push. "Just be careful," he said, pulling me into a hug. "And call me if anything feels off." At 6 p.m., I pulled into the garage's lot, the neon sign buzzing overhead. The bay doors were closed, but the side entrance was open, light spilling out. I stepped inside, the familiar smell of oil and metal hitting me like a wave of nostalgia. Marcus was alone, leaning against a workbench, a wrench in his hand. Jaden, he said, his voice low, tired. He looked worn, his eyes red-rimmed, like he hadn't slept. Thanks for coming. I stayed near the door, my guard up. What do you want, Dad? He set the wrench down, his hands fidgeting. I've been thinking, he said, his voice halting, about what you said, about who you are. My heart leapt, but I didn't let myself hope too much. And, he sighed, rubbing his face. I don't understand it, he said. I don't get how you can feel that way, but I see how much it's hurting you, being away from home. Hurting me? I said, my voice sharp. You kicked me out, Dad. You and Ray told me I didn't belong. He flinched, his eyes dropping to the floor. I didn't know what to do, he said. I thought maybe if you left, you'd figure things out. Change. Change. I laughed, bitter. I'm not the one who needs to change. I'm happy with who I am. I'm in love with Eli, and he makes me feel like I'm enough. You're the one who can't accept that. Marcus's face twisted, and for a moment, I thought he'd shut down again. But then he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't want to lose you, Jaden. You're my son. Then act like it, I said, tears burning my eyes. Talk to me. Try to understand me. Don't just push me away because it's hard. He nodded, slow, like the words were sinking in. I'm trying, he said. I don't know if I can accept it, but I'm trying. It wasn't enough, not really, but it was something. A crack in the wall between us. I wanted to hug him, to bridge the gap, but I couldn't. Not yet. I need you to do better than try, I said. I deserve that. He didn't answer, just nodded again, his eyes distant. I left the garage, my heart a mess of hope and hurt. When I got back to Eli's, I told him everything, and he held me, his warmth easing the ache. He's coming around, Eli said, his voice soft. It's slow, but it's something. But Ray wasn't done. 2 days later, Lena called. Her voice panicked. Jaden, Dad's gone too far. He's got some guys, ex-cops, I think, planning to confront you and Eli. They're calling it an intervention. My stomach dropped. What kind of intervention? I don't know, she said, her voice shaking. But they're meeting at the shop tomorrow night. You need to stay away. I told Eli, and his face hardened. We're not hiding, he said. If they want to come for us, we'll face them. I wanted to argue to keep him safe, but I knew he was right. Running wasn't an option anymore. We spent the night planning, calling Lena for details, trying to figure out what Ray was up to. She said he'd been drinking heavily, his anger boiling over, and he'd roped in 2 of his old buddies from the force. Guys with reputations for being rough. The next evening, we drove to the garage, Lena meeting us in the lot. She was pale, her hands twisting together. Dad's inside with them, she said. I tried to talk him out of it, but he's unhinged. I nodded, my heart pounding. Eli took my hand, his grip steady. Together, he said, and I nodded back. We stepped inside, the garage dimly lit, tools scattered across the workbench. Ray stood in the center, flanked by 2 men, both white, in their 50s, with hard faces and clenched fists. Marcus was there, too, leaning against a car, his expression unreadable. Jaden, Ray said, his voice slurring slightly. You just don't learn, do you? I'm not here to learn from you, I said, my voice steady. I'm here to live my life. Ray laughed, but it was cold, menacing. You think you can just do whatever you want? Disrespect our family? Eli stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. He's not disrespecting anyone. He's being himself. And I love him for it. Ray's face twisted, and he took a step toward Eli. But Marcus moved, putting himself between them. Enough, Ray, he said, his voice low but firm. This stops now. I stared at him, shocked. Ray's eyes widened. You're defending him? He spat. After everything? I'm defending my son, Marcus said, his voice shaking but resolute. I don't understand his life, but I'm not gonna let you hurt him. Ray's buddies shifted, ready to step in, but Marcus held up a hand. Walk away, he said, his voice like steel. Or I'll make you. For a moment no one moved. Then Ray cursed, shoving past his friends, storming out. His buddies followed, casting dark looks over their shoulders. The garage fell silent, the tension still thick. I looked at Marcus, tears in my eyes. Dad. He didn't hug me, didn't say anything, just nodded, his jaw tight. Go home, Jaden, he said. We'll talk soon. It wasn't a full reconciliation, but it was a start. As Eli and I left, Lena hugged me, whispering, I'm proud of you. In the car, Eli took my hand, his smile soft. You're unstoppable, he said. I wasn't sure about that, but for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. The days after the confrontation felt fragile, like walking on thin ice. Marcus's stand against Ray was a turning point, but it didn't erase the pain of that night in the garage, or the weeks of silence that followed. I stayed with Eli, our life together taking shape in small, quiet ways. Shared coffee in the mornings, late-night talks about our future. But part of me was still tethered to Marcus, to the hope that we could rebuild what we'd lost. I kept working at the bookstore, the routine a comfort, but my mind was restless. I'd catch myself staring at my phone, willing it to light up with a message from Dad. Lena texted regularly, saying Marcus was quieter than usual, spending long hours at the garage. Ray had gone dark, not even showing up for family dinners, which Lena said was a relief but also unsettling. His absence felt like a storm brewing, and I couldn't shake the fear that he wasn't done with me. One evening, Eli and I went to our park by Lake Union, the place where we'd first admitted we loved each other. The sunset painted the sky gold, and we sat on our bench, his arm around me. You're thinking about him, aren't you? Eli asked, his voice gentle. I nodded, my throat tight. I just want my dad back, I said. Not the version who's ashamed of me. The one who used to make me feel like I could do anything. Eli kissed my temple, his lips warm. He's still in there, he said. He showed it at the garage. He just needs time to catch up to you. I wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at me. What if Marcus's moment of courage was a fluke? What if he couldn't bridge the gap between his world and mine? The answer came a week later. I was restocking shelves when my phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Dinner. My place. 7 p.m. Bring Eli. My heart stopped. I read it again, sure I'd misunderstood. But it was real. Marcus was reaching out and he wanted Eli there. I called Eli, my voice shaking with nerves and hope. He wants us to come to dinner, I said. Both of us. Eli was quiet for a moment, then said, That's huge, Jaden. We're going. That night we drove to the house, my stomach in knots. Eli held my hand the whole way, his calm grounding me. When we pulled into the driveway, I saw Marcus's truck, but Ray's car was nowhere in sight. I took a deep breath and knocked. Marcus opened the door, his face softer than I'd seen in weeks. Jaden, he said, then looked at Eli. Eli, come in. The house smelled like roast chicken, Marcus's specialty. The dining table was set for 3, and I noticed the effort, clean tablecloth, actual napkins instead of paper towels. It was small, but it meant something. We sat, the air heavy with unspoken words. Dinner smells great, Eli said, breaking the silence, his smile easy. Thanks for having me. Marcus nodded, his hands fidgeting with his fork. Figured it was time, he said, his voice gruff but not unkind. Jaden, I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about who you are. I held my breath, my heart pounding. And, I asked, my voice barely steady. He looked at me, his eyes raw. I don't get it, he said. I won't lie. It's hard for me. But you're my son, Jaden. And I don't want to lose you. Tears stung my eyes, but I held them back. I don't want to lose you either, Dad, I said. But I need you to see me. All of me. He nodded, slow, like he was carrying a weight. I'm trying, he said. I want to know you and Eli. He glanced at Eli, his expression awkward but earnest. Tell me about yourself, Eli. What do you do? Eli smiled, launching into a story about his graphic design work, his passion for art, his big plans for a studio. Marcus listened, asking questions, his face softening as Eli talked. It wasn't perfect. There were pauses, moments of tension, but it was a start. For the first time, I felt like Dad was seeing us, not just the idea of us. After dinner, Marcus pulled me aside while Eli cleared the table. I'm sorry, he said, his voice low, for that night, for letting Ray push you out. I was wrong. The apology hit me hard, cracking open the hurt I'd been carrying. You hurt me, Dad, I said, my voice shaking. But I want us to be okay. He nodded, his eyes glassy. Me too, he said. I'm not there yet, but I'm trying. I hugged him, the first time in weeks, and he hugged me back, his arms tight. It wasn't forgiveness, not fully, but it was a step. But Ray wasn't done haunting me. The next day, Lena called, her voice tense. Jaden, Dad's back. He showed up at the garage, drunk, yelling about you and Eli. Marcus kicked him out, but he's not letting this go. My stomach twisted. What's he planning? I asked. I don't know, she said, but he's talking about finishing what he started. You need to watch your back. I told Eli and his face darkened. We need to end this, he said. Ray's not going to stop unless we make him. We decided to confront him, but on our terms. Lena found out Ray was staying at a cheap motel in Tacoma, licking his wounds and drinking himself into a stupor. We drove there the next evening, the rain relentless, mirroring the storm inside me. Lena came with us, insisting she could talk him down. The motel was grimy, the neon sign flickering. Ray's room was on the second floor, and we knocked, my heart pounding. He opened the door, his eyes bloodshot, his shirt rumpled. What the hell do you want? He slurred, glaring at me, then Eli. We're done with your threats, I said, my voice steady. You don't get to control me, Ray. Not anymore. He laughed, bitter. You think you're tough now? You're still a kid, Jaden. A confused kid who's gonna ruin everything. Eli stepped forward, his voice calm but unyielding. He's not confused. He's happy. And if you can't see that, you're the one who's lost. Ray's face twisted, and he lunged at Eli, but Lena stepped in, shoving him back. Stop it, Dad, she shouted, tears streaming down her face. You're tearing us apart. Jaden's your nephew. He's family. Ray froze, his chest heaving, his eyes darting between us. For the first time, I saw something break in him. Anger giving way to something else, maybe shame. You don't get it, he muttered, sinking onto the bed. I was trying to protect us. Protect us from what? I asked, my voice raw. From me being happy? He didn't answer, just stared at the floor. Lena touched my arm, her eyes pleading. Let's go, she said. He's not worth it. We left him there, the door clicking shut behind us. In the car, Eli took my hand, his warmth steadying me. You did it, he said. You faced him. But the victory felt heavy. Ray was broken, but so was our family. As we drove back to Seattle, I leaned against Eli, the rain blurring the world outside. I didn't know if Ray would ever change, but I knew I wouldn't let him define me. Months passed, and the wounds began to scar over. Eli and I settled into a rhythm, our life together a mix of quiet joy and stubborn hope. We'd cook dinner together, argue over what music to play, and dream about a future where we didn't have to fight to be seen. The bookstore became my sanctuary, the smell of old paper and coffee grounding me. But Marcus and Ray were never far from my thoughts. Marcus and I started talking more, small steps toward rebuilding. He'd call to check in, his voice still awkward but warmer each time. One Saturday he showed up at the bookstore, his hands shoved in his pockets, looking out of place among the shelves. "Thought I'd see where you work," he said, his eyes scanning the stacks. I gave him a tour, pointing out my favorite books, and he listened, asking questions about the authors, the stories. It was stiff at first, but by the time we grabbed coffee across the street, he was smiling, telling me about a new car he was fixing up. He didn't mention Eli, but he didn't flinch when I did, and that felt like progress. Ray was a different story. Lena said he'd moved to a small apartment in Tacoma, still drinking, still angry, but quieter now. She'd visit him, trying to pull him out of his spiral, but he refused to talk about me. Part of me wanted to hate him, to write him off, but another part, the part that remembered him teaching me to fish when I was 8, couldn't let go. One evening, Eli and I went back to our park, the bench where we'd carved out so many memories. The air was crisp, the city lights reflecting on the water. Eli pulled me close, his breath warm against my cheek. "You've come so far," he said. "You're building something real, Jaden, with or without them." I nodded, my heart full but heavy. "I just wish it didn't hurt so much," I said. "I wish I could have my dad and my uncle and you, all of it." "You might," he said, his voice soft. "Marcus is trying. Ray, maybe one day." That night, I got a call from Lena, her voice hesitant. "Jaden, Dad wants to see you. He's sober for once. Says he's got something to say." My stomach twisted, but I agreed to meet him. The next day, Eli and I drove to Tacoma, to a small coffee shop near Ray's apartment. He was waiting at a corner table, looking older, thinner, his buzz cut graying. He stood when he saw us, his hands fidgeting. "Jaden," he said, his voice rough. "Eli, thanks for coming." I nodded, wary, and we sat. Ray looked at me, his eyes tired but clear. "I've been an ass," he said, blunt. "I thought I was protecting you, protecting the family. But I was wrong." I stared, stunned. Eli's hand found mine under the table, grounding me. "I don't understand your life," Ray went on, his voice halting. "I don't know if I ever will. But Lena's right, your family. And I am sorry for what I did." The apology was raw, imperfect, but it was real. I felt tears prick my eyes, but I held them back. "You hurt me, Ray," I said. "You made me feel like I didn't belong." He nodded, his jaw tight. "I know. I can't take it back. But I'm here, trying to do better." It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. We talked for a while, awkward but honest. And when we left, Ray shook Eli's hand, a small gesture that meant more than I could say. Back in Seattle, Marcus invited us to dinner again, and this time it felt different. Lighter. He asked Eli about his latest design project, even laughed at one of his jokes. After dinner, he pulled me aside, his eyes serious. "I'm proud of you, Jaden," he said, "for standing up, for being you. I'm still learning, but I'm here." I hugged him, tears spilling over, and he hugged me back, his grip fierce. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. That night, Eli and I stood on his balcony, the city alive below us. "We're gonna be okay," he said, his arms around me. "Yeah," I said, leaning into him. "We are." The pain of that night in the garage would always be with me, a scar I'd carry forever. But so would the love, Eli's, Lena's, and now, slowly, Marcus's and even Ray's. I'd fought for my truth, and I'd won something better. A family that was learning to love me, not in spite of who I am, but because of it.